The snow whispered as it fell, soft against the windshield of Eli's borrowed truck. He sat idle behind the wheel, hands unmoving, engine long dead. The heater had given up hours ago, but he hadn't noticed. Milo slept curled beneath his coat in the back seat, his small breath fogging the glass. Eli watched a distant barn tilt into the wind like an old man leaning on memory, and for the first time in weeks, he wasn't sure what to say, not even to himself. The farm was quiet. No barking dogs, no humming tractors, just a path worn into the snow by footsteps that knew where they were going. He opened the door slowly so as not to wake the boy, his boots crunching on the frozen gravel. The air bit through his coat, but he didn't flinch. A woman stood by the barn, arms folded, hat pulled low over her brow. She didn't wave, she didn't smile, but she didn't walk away either. Eli raised a hand. "Eli Hart, you called about the shed?" She nodded once. "Juniper." Her voice was low, weathered, like it had spent too many years being quiet. They stood in silence as the wind moved around them. He waited for her to say more, but she didn't. She turned and started walking toward the structure behind the barn. The shed leaned heavily to one side, its roof sagging with snow like it had long since lost its will to stay upright. He followed her through the snowbank, each step deliberate, the cold threading through his jeans. She pointed to the broken beam near the back. "Storm last week. Couldn't brace it in time." He knelt by the foundation, fingers tracing the splintered wood. "Looks like it's been weakening for years." "I know," she said. Not defensively, not bitterly. Just fact. He glanced back at the truck, then at her. "Do you mind if my son waits inside? Truck's cold." Juniper's eyes flicked to the vehicle. For a second, her mouth tightened, but then she nodded toward the house. "You'll find the kitchen unlocked. There's tea warming. Can sit by the fire. Thanks." Eli started back, unsure if she'd follow. She didn't. Inside the house, the warmth hit him slow and steady. A narrow hallway led to a kitchen full of soft light, flickering orange from a fire in the adjacent room. He shook Milo gently. The boy stirred, blinking sleep from his lashes. "You okay, bud?" Eli whispered. Milo nodded, burying his face into his chest. "Come on. There's a fire inside." He carried him through the snow, boots crunching into the porch steps. Inside, he found an old woven quilt folded neatly on a chair by the fire. He laid Milo on the couch, tucking the blanket around him. The boy was already drifting back to sleep, face calm in the glow. Back outside, Juniper hadn't moved. "She's sleeping," Eli said. The fire did the trick. Juniper didn't. "Look up." Children know when something's warm and safe. They trust it. Eli didn't know how to respond to that, so he picked up the hammer. They worked quietly. Juniper held the beam steady as he braced it with new wood, salvaged from her supply pile. She moved without hesitation, not clumsy like someone pretending. To understand tools, but practiced, competent. Still, she watched more than she spoke. By mid-afternoon, the wind slowed. Eli peeled off his gloves and rubbed his aching fingers. "You've been on this land long." Juniper wiped her palms on her jeans. "Since I could walk." "You run it all alone?" A pause. "What you see, yes." That felt like more than an answer. He nodded, letting it rest. She glanced toward the house. "Your boy, he okay?" Eli hesitated. "He doesn't talk much since his mother passed. Just draws a lot." Juniper looked down, scuffed her boot against the snow. "Drawings, good quiet ways of speaking? You don't talk much yourself." "I talk when I mean it." The corner of his mouth twitched, but he didn't smile. As the light dimmed, Juniper brought out 2 tin mugs of cider. Steam rose in gentle curls, fragrant and strange. Apple, clove, something bitter. They sat on the porch steps, neither quite facing the other. "You don't owe me anything," she said suddenly. Eli turned to her. "What do you mean?" "I know this kind of job. Folks come looking for work, take what they can, maybe take more. I don't expect favors or thanks. Just work." He studied her profile, sharp in the dying light. "You think I'm here to take advantage of you?" "I think everyone's here to survive," she replied quietly. And that's fair. Eli sipped the cider. It burned down, slow and good. What if I'm here to build something again? Juniper looked at him then. Not a hard look, not testing. Just searching. I hope you are, she said, and stood to go. That night, Eli and Milo stayed in the guest room. He hadn't meant to ask, hadn't planned on staying, but the sky turned fast and mean, and Juniper offered with a shrug. No sense dying in a ditch. The room smelled of cedar and dust. A rocking chair faced the window, and a stack of yellowing books leaned against the nightstand. Milo lay curled under a patchwork quilt, breathing easy. Eli sat in the rocker, the floor groaning gently beneath him. He found an old toy horse on the shelf, wooden, worn, one ear chipped. Someone had carved initials into the belly, JT. He held it in his palm a long time before setting it down again. Juniper's footsteps passed down the hall. No words exchanged, just the creak of her door closing. Morning came slowly. The storm had blown past, leaving a soft silence behind. Eli stepped outside, breath fogging in the pale gold light. Snow glistened like sugar across the roof of the barn. He worked through the morning. Juniper joined him after a while, carrying 2 biscuits wrapped in cloth. She handed him one wordlessly. The biscuit was warm, filled with something sweet. I could fix the door hinges too, he said. They're rusted clean through. Juniper gave a half nod. I'd appreciate that. Eli bent to his work again, but her voice stopped him. Son, what's his name? Milo. He's gentle. His mother was too. They said nothing more. She left him to the shed. Later, as he packed up his tools, he noticed a folded piece of paper tucked beside his hammer. A letter. Old. Yellowed at the edges. He started to unfold it, but stopped at the first line. You said I wouldn't survive this winter without you. You were wrong, but I wish you were right. He folded it back gently and slid it into his coat. By the time the sun slipped below the hills, Eli had repaired the shed, reinforced the hinges and cleared the steps. The farm looked almost new under the soft dusk. As he loaded the tools into the truck, Juniper approached him slowly, her hands in her coat pockets. You'll come back tomorrow? He didn't answer right away. He looked at Milo in the front seat, drawing something into the fogged glass with his fingertip. A horse, maybe, or a tree. If you've still got work, Eli said finally, I'll still come. Juniper nodded. There's always work. She turned and walked back toward the house, slow and sure. Eli watched until she was swallowed by the porch light. Then he looked down at his hands, calloused, cold, steadier than they'd been in months. He exhaled into the cold, and for the first time since his wife died, he felt something he didn't quite recognize. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just the cider. But either way, he was coming back. The morning unfolded slow and silver, clouds veiling the sun like a kept secret. The frost hadn't yet lifted from the ground when Eli's boots touched the porch again. The gravel crunched softly beneath his step, but Juniper didn't turn to look until he reached the bottom stair. She was already working, splitting logs with the kind of practiced rhythm that didn't waste energy on anything extra. You're early, she said, wiping her hands on the side of her coat. You said there's always work, Eli replied, setting down his bag. Didn't want to be late to it. Juniper nodded but didn't smile. That seemed to be her way, acknowledgement over affection, purpose over performance. She motioned to the tools leaning against the shed. Hinges on the barn need replacing. That's next. Understood. They worked in silence except for the echoing clang of old iron and the occasional creak of settling wood. The barn smelled of hay and winter damp, a smell that belonged to both life and decay. Juniper passed him tools without needing to ask what he needed. She seemed to sense the steps before he took them. Milo sat by the kitchen window, sketching. Juniper had cleared space at the table for him. A quiet gesture she hadn't spoken aloud. He'd hardly looked up when Eli walked in. But there was a warmth to his stillness now, a kind of settled trust. That, Eli noticed, had everything to do with the house and the woman who let it breathe. You built all this yourself? He asked. Later, as they paused for water. Some of it, she replied. The rest I kept standing. He glanced at the house, at the fields rolling out behind it like a sleeping giant under snow. That's a lot to keep standing. I had help, she said. Then a pause. Once. Eli didn't press. That single word, once, carried a weight that didn't invite touching. Instead, he said, "You don't get many visitors? Most folks don't bother this far out, and I don't ask them to." Eli looked toward the horizon. "There's peace in that. There's loneliness in it too," Juniper said quietly, before turning to walk away. By mid-afternoon, they sat under the awning, their jackets dusted with sawdust and old light. Milo joined them, his sketchbook tucked under one arm, eyes shy but observant. "Can I see?" Juniper asked, her voice softer than usual. Milo hesitated, then handed her the page. A horse stood in profile, thin-legged, sharp-eyed. There was something unspoken in its posture, something proud and uncertain at once. "This is good," she murmured. "You draw with your ears, not your hands." Milo frowned. "Ears." Juniper tilted the page so he could see. "Means you're listening to what isn't said, not just what's in front of you." He seemed to think about that for a long time. Then quietly he said, "That's what Dad does." Eli felt something in his chest press outward, like a door easing open. He looked at Juniper, who handed the drawing back with care, and then at his son, who didn't flinch beneath her gaze. After supper, they sat by the fireplace. Juniper had lit it without ceremony, and the room flickered gold across the wooden floor. Milo lay curled on the rug, coloring in silence. Eli nursed a mug of cider that tasted faintly of cinnamon and ash. "You have family?" he asked. Juniper's fingers traced the rim of her mug. "Had. My brother ran it with me for a while, left 2 winters back." "Where to?" "Somewhere warmer. Said the land asked too much." Eli nodded slowly. "Sometimes it does." "And you?" she asked. "My wife was a painter," he said. "She taught middle school art. Brightest person in the room every time." He looked into the fire. "Cancer doesn't care about light." Juniper didn't offer platitudes. Instead, she said, "She'd be proud. Milo's got her quiet. He's got her colors, too." A log cracked sharply in the fireplace, the sound echoing through the still room like a memory breaking. Neither spoke for a while. When it was time to leave, Milo resisted. He clung to the warm quiet of the room, his eyes heavy with sleep. Juniper handed Eli a folded quilt. "Take it, roads ice up quick." Eli studied her face, lined and shadowed by firelight. "You sure?" "I know what cold does. Better safe." He took it without arguing. As he loaded the truck, Juniper stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the snow begin to fall again. He turned to say something, maybe thank you, maybe something else. But she simply lifted her chin. "See you tomorrow." And somehow, that was enough. The next week fell into rhythm. Mornings began with the hush of snow. Afternoons passed in the cadence of work and warmth. Eli repaired the old fence posts, reinforced the well house roof, sealed the storm. Windows? Milo took to the kitchen corner, his sketchbook thickening with pencil marks and observations. Juniper moved like someone stitched to the land, quiet and exacting. But occasionally, just occasionally, there was a gentler curve to her mouth when she passed by Milo's seat or refilled Eli's mug before he asked. One afternoon, Eli found her in the attic sorting boxes layered in dust and old air. "Need a hand?" he offered. She didn't turn around. "Looking for something." "What is it?" "A letter," she said simply. "From my brother. He left it before he went. I only read it once." "Why just once?" "Because it hurt." Eli stepped inside, low ceiling pressing close above them. "Maybe it's time to read it again." She pulled a box forward and opened it slowly. Letters bundled in twine, photographs curling at the corners. A sweater, moth-eaten, folded beside an empty tin of tobacco. She held a piece of paper between her fingers, but didn't unfold it. "I used to think the land was everything," she said softly. "That if I stayed, I'd win. That staying meant love. And now I wonder if leaving is just another way to love. Eli didn't respond. The silence felt sacred. She didn't read the letter, not yet, but she placed it in her coat pocket. That night, snow came heavier. By morning, the road out was buried. Eli stood on the porch, hand shielding his eyes, and then turned back inside. "Storms boxed us in," he said. "We're not getting through today." Juniper poured another cup of tea, unfazed. "Then stay. There's stew warming." Milo didn't ask questions. He sat by the fire, sketching the barn through the window, smoke curling from the chimney like a dream unraveling. Juniper pulled out an old board game and set it on the floor. "You play?" she asked Milo. He shrugged. She moved the pieces. "I'll teach you." Eli watched them from the doorway, something settling in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. Not the ache of grief, not the edge of survival, but something in between, like steadiness. Later, as dusk fell, and the sky blushed over the snow-covered fields, Juniper stood beside him at the window. "You're not just passing through," she said. He looked down at his hands, fingers cracked and calloused. "I didn't plan to stay." She didn't say anything, just nodded, but her eyes lingered a little longer this time. As they turned in for the night, Eli found the quilt she had given him still folded at the foot of the guest bed. On top of it, a small drawing, Milo's, of the three of them beside the barn. And in the corner, barely visible, was the outline of a fourth figure, one standing at a distance, half faded. Watching, Eli stared at it a long while. Outside, the snow kept falling, slow, steady, relentless. And inside, the house held its warmth. Tomorrow would come, and when it did, they'd still be here, together. By morning, the storm had buried the house in silence. Snow curled against the windows like a heavy breath, muting everything. Eli stood by the front door, coat already on, trying to gauge the world beyond the porch. His breath fogged the glass. The landscape looked like it had never moved, never changed, just white and still and wide. Behind him, Juniper moved about the kitchen with steady hands. She cracked eggs into a pan, the sizzle like a defiant answer to the hush outside. Milo sat at the table, blanket draped over his shoulders, flipping through the pages of his sketchbook. His fingers were ink-stained and quiet. "You'll be stuck here a while," Juniper said without looking up. "I figured," Eli replied. He didn't sound upset, not even inconvenienced, just resigned or maybe relieved. Juniper served breakfast, without ceremony. 3 plates, eggs, toast, a few thin strips of venison jerky. She sat, elbows on the table, eyes scanning both of them. Storm like this usually lasts a few days. Might be longer if the road crew doesn't bother this far out. Milo perked up a little. "We can't leave at all." Juniper shook her head. "Not unless you want to dig 4 miles of road." Eli raised a brow. "I'll pass." The 3 of them ate in the glow of morning light filtered through frosted windows. For the first time, there was an ease to it, like they'd fallen into something resembling a family rhythm. Not perfect, not even intentional, just natural. After breakfast, Juniper handed Eli a pair of work gloves. "Roof's likely taken a hit. We'll need to check the beams in the shed." He followed without a word. Outside, the snow was knee-deep, but firm beneath the surface. Their boots left a trail like a shared memory. Inside the shed, the air was damp and cold. The roof creaked overhead, strained under the weight of snow. Juniper climbed the ladder with practiced balance. Eli spotted from below, watching her movements closely, not out of doubt, but out of something more subtle, more personal. She was careful, methodical. Each motion had purpose. "You've done this alone?" he asked. "For years. Ever worry it might get too heavy?" She looked down at him from the rafters. "Always, but I get up anyway." Eli nodded. He understood, not just the words, but the life behind them. By late afternoon, the sun pressed through the clouds in thin blades, lighting the snow like a memory trying to resurface. Milo was back at the window with his sketchbook, drawing the shed now. Juniper. On the roof, Eli below, both of them framed in his quiet observation. Juniper came inside with a cold flush to her cheeks. She shed her coat and boots, then paused, staring at the old fireplace for a beat too long. "You okay?" Eli asked. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked to Milo, then back to him. "Been a long time since anyone shared the work." Didn't smile, but the warmth in his voice was unmistakable. "You let us in, that counts for something." That night, Milo stayed up later than usual. He curled near the fire, too comfortable to move, and eventually drifted off. Juniper draped a blanket over him, tucking it gently beneath his chin. Eli watched her, the way her hands moved. Cautious, deliberate. "You lost someone," he said, softly. She didn't look at him. Just said, "My brother." "The one who left?" Juniper nodded, then sank into the chair across from Eli, staring at the flames. "He wasn't meant to leave alone. We were supposed to go together. We made plans for years, sell the land, start over somewhere else. Warmer, closer to cities. Somewhere we weren't just surviving. What happened?" "I couldn't let go." She met Eli's eyes. "I thought if I stayed, I'd be strong. I didn't realize strength's not always staying put." Eli leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I stayed too long after she died. In the house, in the grief. I thought moving on meant forgetting, but it didn't. It just meant I had to find something new to hold." Juniper studied him. "And did you?" He looked toward Milo. "I'm trying." The silence returned, but this time it wasn't heavy. It felt earned. Juniper stood. "Come on, there's something I want to show you." They bundled up again and stepped outside, guided by moonlight and memory. Juniper led him behind the barn, through a grove of trees nearly swallowed by snow. Eventually, they reached a small clearing. A wooden marker stood in the center. Weathered, simple, no name. Juniper didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "My brother's dog died the day after he left. He loved her more than anything. I couldn't bring myself to write her name. It felt like losing the last piece of him." Eli crouched beside the marker, brushing snow from its base. "You come here often?" "Only when it storms." "Why? Because storms strip everything away. Remind you what's left." He stood and faced her. She looked fragile under the moon, tough as iron, but only because she had to be. "I'm not planning to disappear," Eli said. "I don't expect you to stay either." He paused. "What if I wanted to?" Juniper's eyes flicked to his, sharp and cautious. "Then we'd have to stop pretending this is temporary." Back inside, the warmth hit like memory. Milo stirred under his blanket but didn't wake. Eli placed another log on the fire and sat beside Juniper again. Both of them quiet, watching the flames rise and fall. Morning came without fanfare. The storm had passed, but the snow remained deep. The sky was pale blue and endless. Juniper stood on the porch looking out at the road, now a buried thread beneath a sea of white. Eli joined her, coffee in hand. "You think it's cleared enough to try leaving?" he asked. Juniper's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Could be, if you wanted to." He sipped his coffee. "Milo said last night he doesn't want to go yet. Says he sleeps better here." Juniper looked at him carefully. "And you?" "I don't know what this is," he said, "but it feels like it could become something." Her expression didn't change, but her fingers brushing his as he handed her the mug lingered a moment longer than necessary. Later, they worked the snow out of the drive together. It took hours, hard, repetitive work. But there was laughter this time, dry and brief like music made of rust and memory. Milo helped, small shovel in hand, dragging snow in heaps that barely made a dent, but he beamed at every compliment Juniper gave. By sunset, the drive was partially cleared. A path had been carved, a way out, a way back. They sat on the porch, tired and damp, sharing a flask of something sharp that warmed deeper than the drink. "I'll need to head back tomorrow," Eli said. "Just for a few days, check the house. Sort things. Juniper nodded. That makes sense. But I want to come back, he added. If you'll let me. Her eyes didn't leave his. You know where we are. That night, Milo fell asleep. Early, Juniper walked Eli to the guest room and stood at the doorway. Neither spoke. Then finally she said, If you come back, don't wait for another storm. Eli reached for her hand. I won't. She didn't pull away, and for the first time they didn't feel like strangers orbiting the same silence. They felt like something new, like roots just beginning to twist into soil, and outside, the snow began to melt. Not fast, but enough. The road had thawed enough to make the journey possible, though it was still laced with peril. Ice beneath tire tracks, mud soft as bruised fruit. Eli packed the last of their things into the back of the truck, while Milo lingered at the porch, his sketchbook hugged close to his chest, eyes darting between the trees like he might memorize the silhouettes before they faded behind the horizon. Juniper leaned against the railing, arms folded, watching them with a calm that barely masked the tension beneath her skin. You sure you don't want to stay another day? She asked, voice low but steady. Eli tightened the straps across the bags in the back. If I stay longer, I won't go at all. She nodded, lips pressed into a thin line. That's not a bad thing. No, he said, glancing at her. It's not. Milo descended the steps slowly. We'll come back, right? Eli placed a hand on his shoulder. Yeah, buddy, we will. The ride back was quiet. Trees slid past them like memories they'd only half lived. The cabin, Juniper's silence, the firelight, it all clung to Eli's thoughts like wet snow refusing to melt. Milo kept his head tilted against the window, sketching occasionally, but the lines were slower, hesitant. The boy had changed. He wasn't restless anymore. He looked like someone who had found a shape in the world that finally fit. Back in the city, the noise hit like a slap. Car horns, flashing lights. Too many voices layered over each other without rhythm or rest. Their apartment felt smaller than Eli remembered, colder, even though the radiator hummed at full tilt. He stood in the center of the living room, coat still on, while Milo immediately went to his corner and began pinning up new sketches. Juniper in the snow, the fireplace glowing, the old barn tilting under the weight of time. Eli sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, and finally exhaled. 3 days passed. He called Juniper each night. The conversations were short but filled with everything unspoken. They talked about weather, about repairs, about the way Milo had started leaving his bedroom door open again. And then, always, there was the pause, long, breathing, like a shared inhale they never quite released. On the 4th night, Eli returned home late. His coat was damp from rain. Milo was asleep on the couch, sketchbook open to a new page. Juniper. And Eli standing beside the woodpile, eyes turned toward something distant, unreachable. Eli smiled and tucked a blanket over him. He didn't hear the knock right away. It was faint, tentative. Another followed. Eli frowned and crossed the room, checking the peephole. His jaw clenched. Outside stood a man Eli hadn't seen in years. Sharp eyes, unshaved jaw, worn jacket zipped to the neck like armor. Liam, Eli muttered. He opened the door slowly. What are you doing here? Liam shrugged, hands stuffed in his pockets. Thought I'd check in. Heard through the grapevine you vanished for a while. You keeping tabs on me? Hard not to. You left fast. Eli stepped out and closed the door behind him. That was the point. Liam tilted his head. You running from something? Not anymore. Liam gave a humorless smile. Glad to hear it, because I need your help. Eli's jaw tightened. No. You haven't even heard what I want. I don't need to. Whatever it is, I'm not that guy anymore. Liam took a step forward. You think peace lasts forever? Eli? Think you can disappear into the woods and pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist? They're still looking for you. I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe not, but you were involved. And they don't forget faces. Eli's hands curled into fists. I have a kid now. Liam looked toward the window. Yeah, Saw the drawings. Looks like he's finally sleeping again. Eli moved fast, fist to collar. Pinned Liam against the brick wall with a force that startled even himself. Don't talk about him. Don't come near him. Whatever this is, you leave us out. Liam didn't resist. He just looked at him, eyes sharp with something between pity and warning. They're getting close, he said. You can ignore it, but that won't stop the knock from coming again. Next time it won't be me. Eli released him. Breath ragged. Fury boiling under the surface like something primal, something he thought he buried long ago. Get lost, he said. Liam nodded, adjusted his jacket, and walked off into the rain. Inside, Eli locked the door, double-checked the windows. Then, he sat beside Milo and stared at the sketchbook for a long time. He couldn't go back to sleep. The next morning, Eli packed a bag. Milo watched him, quiet. Are we leaving again? Not yet. I just need to take a short trip. Milo's brow furrowed. To Juniper's? Eli hesitated. Not this time. Just some old stuff I need to clear up. But I'll be back soon. Milo said nothing for a while. Then softly, you promised we weren't running anymore. Eli knelt down. We're not. I just need to make sure the past doesn't find us again. He left Milo with a neighbor he trusted. Then he drove. Not to Juniper, not yet. He needed answers first. He needed to know what Liam meant when he said they were getting close. 2 towns over, in a dark little bar with a broken jukebox, Eli found the name he was looking for, Riley Knox. One of the last men alive who knew what really happened the night everything went sideways. The night Eli walked away from a group that had stopped pretending it worked for justice. Riley looked up from his drink. Recognition flickered, and then tension. I'm not here for revenge, Eli said. I need information. Riley smirked. You still playing hero? No, just trying to protect what matters. Riley's gaze narrowed. Then you should stay gone. You think they forgot? You think they didn't keep records? What do they know? Enough. Names, faces, connections. And now they're moving through the cracks, quiet, smart. They want the ones who left the trail. Eli swallowed hard. Juniper, Milo. They're just leverage, Riley said. Unless you go back, they'll be safe. But if you do, I won't let them be used. Riley leaned in. Then you'd better end this permanently. Eli left the bar with fire in his chest. That night he called Juniper. She answered on the first ring. You sound different, she said. I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen. No interruptions. There was silence, then a soft, okay. I used to run with a crew, not criminals, not exactly. But not clean either. We thought we were fixing things. The system, corruption. But we made mistakes. I walked away when it got dark, took Milo, left it behind, or so I thought. Juniper was quiet. They're coming, June, not for you, but for me. And if I'm near you, near Milo, they might use that. Her voice cracked. So what do we do? I need to draw them out. Finish this. On my terms. Eli. If anything happens... No. She cut him off. Don't say it. If you're going into something dangerous, then you don't go alone. I can't drag you into this. You already have. The next day, she showed up at his door. Boots, jacket, calm fury in her stance. She looked like someone who'd lost too much to be afraid anymore. Eli stared at her. I told you not to come. And I ignored you, she said. Because this is what staying looks like. You taught me that. Together, they planned. Eli had maps, names, habits. Juniper had instincts and a cold determination honed over years of isolation. They moved like shadows. One by one, they dismantled the remnants of the network that haunted Eli's past. Calls were made, messages traced, faces confronted. The past wasn't just buried, it was broken, scattered, turned to ash. It was Juniper who found the last one. Liam. He stood in a warehouse by the docks, rain hammering the metal roof like war. Drums. I warned you, he said when they arrived. You made it personal, Eli replied. You dragged a woman and a kid into a fire. She walked into it herself, Juniper said. Now she's here to put it out. The confrontation was brutal, swift, not with fists but with truth. Juniper laid it bare, every threat, every name they'd uncovered. And when it was done, Liam didn't beg. He just nodded, tired, beaten in a way deeper than bruises. "It's over," he said. "No," Eli corrected. "Now it ends." He turned, his back, walked into the night with Juniper at his side, and for the first time in years, the future didn't look like something to escape from. It looked like something worth running toward.